All right, I'd like to welcome everyone out tonight for our Town Hall Forum here, sponsored by AT&T. We appreciate their sponsorship. For those of you on the radio tonight, I want to let you know we just presented checks to 3 local schools here in Pike County: Shelby Valley High School, Phelps Elementary, and Pikeville High School. Those were all grants that were funded by money that was raised at our golf tournament each year annually. And these 4 legislators are 4 of our premier sponsors for that event, so we appreciate that. We appreciate our Education Committee with Ms. Kay Baird chairing that. And these forums are usually, they are planned and prepared by our Economic Development Committee, chaired by Mr. James D. England. We appreciate him. So we're going to go ahead and get started tonight. I want to welcome our guests, our 4 legislators. They will be introduced momentarily. But first, I want to bring our chairman of the board up to speak to you just a few moments, Mr. Danny Van Hoos. He's the Director of Marketing with Appalachian Wireless. A faithful volunteer for the Chamber, a good friend and partner, Mr. Danny Van Hoos.
Well, thank you, Jared, and thank you all of you that came out here tonight. This is it's turned out to be a fantastic series for us because time and again, being able to sit down and have these kinds of conversations in an intimate type setting with these fantastic legislators just really helps us understand what's really going on. They're always honest with us and tell us how they feel as to whether or not something's possible or whether or not we need to ask a little louder sometimes, I guess. But we're thankful for them, and you know, as our chamber represents 216,000 people across 8 counties, and you know, our moniker is that we want the power to be heard. And so hopefully we are providing information to them to let them know what the business community and the people of this region look for with regards to particular bills or things of that nature. And hopefully if we're all communicating, then hopefully we're all moving in the right direction, in the same direction. So we're thankful to be a part of that. Tonight I want to introduce, we'll get this ball rolling, if you will, but I want to introduce our moderator for the evening tonight. He is the owner and president and CEO of Case Bolt Broadcasting and Marketing. Someone that needs no introduction, really, but my friend Keith Case Bolt will be your moderator tonight. So, thank you.
Thank you, Danny. What a privilege it is to be here tonight. I think most people will agree in any business that we're in, or at least seems like I think this, the biggest problem that we have is communication. So to have an opportunity to have these 4 individuals here tonight and to be able to communicate in a town hall forum, I think is wonderful. I want to thank my friend Danny Van Hoos. I've got to tell you, Jared is right. This guy is committed. I know that firsthand because I get texts at 3:30 a.m. And I've returned them only for him to say, "What are you doing awake at 3:30?" And I said, "You shouldn't have texted me." But Danny does a wonderful job, and Jared Arnett is a fine young man who's the president of this chamber. I'm really proud of what he's doing also. He followed in the steps of Brad Hall, who's here tonight. And the idea of the Southeast Chamber, one voice, bringing everyone together, it's a lofty goal, but it is a worthy goal. And I think it's the only way that we're ever going to make a difference is when we stand side by side and we truly become one voice. I do want to thank the stations of East Kentucky Broadcasting for being here tonight. I saw Joe and I heard Shannon's voice for broadcasting this event. That'll make sure that the people who can't be here tonight listen. Jeff Vanderbeck is here from the News Express, and of course this is being filmed with Al Greenfield and his staff on Pike TV so that you can watch it back and we can have more transparency. We have a list of questions. I don't know that we'll get past the first one, but we'll find out as that goes along. Right now, if you would, I'd like for you to welcome first to the table State Representative Hubert Collins. Next, State Representative Keith Hall. Third is State Representative Leslie Combs. And fourth, a fellow Virgie Eagle, State Senator Ray Jones. Our format tonight is we have a few questions that we're going to ask, and the reason I said I don't think we'll get past the first one is it has to do with coal and coal severance. So if Keith goes first, then we know how long this is going to be. But we're going to start in the line that we're sitting, and the question is going to be about House Bill 38. And from what I understand, this is a proposal for 100% of the coal severance tax money to come back to the counties that actually mine the coal. If you've read the paper, watched the television, or listened to the radio, obviously you hear the news. There is a shortfall. We lost somewhere around 2,500 workers in the mining industry alone last year. So we know the war on coal. Now all of a sudden we're feeling the pinch because of the shortfall in coal severance tax money. So we'll start off with State Representative Hubert Collins.
Thank you all. Glad to be here for the honor of all of them getting the invitation. Of course, they said talking at the mic, but evidently I can't get much closer than that. So, but anyway, we have got a real problem, as everyone knows, here in East Kentucky with the mining industry. The mining industry has always been a roller coaster, up and down situation, but seems like this one is worse than what we've had before. This one may last longer than what they have before. I think somewhere along the way, coal will come back. And I think we will hopefully sometime or another enjoy the times like we have in the past. But the House bill that tries to get 100% of the severance tax back, we know that the coal counties, we know we're all for it. But it's the others that will oppose it because they get some too. We had a transportation meeting up in northern Kentucky one day, and the county judge up there said, why don't you all need to give us more of our tax back that we pay into the state? We pay so much more than we get back. I said, okay, you give us our severance tax, all of it back, then we will talk about giving you more of your tax you pay back. Well, that stopped the conversation right there. So every one of the legislators here at this table are very vocal when it comes to talking about coal and what happens here in East Kentucky. But it is sad that the severance tax is really going down and getting less all the time, and it is causing some problems with some of the county budgets. And we hope somewhere along the way that it will start coming back. We're just going to have to be wiser the way we budget this tax, the way we use it, and making sure what we get, we use it in a wise manner. So I'm going to yield to my good friend Representative Hall, if it's okay, because he's a coal man that can talk longer than probably most of us on some of these things. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Hubert Collins. State Representative Keith Hall.
I like the moderator's first name. As you all can see, I wear my Friends of Coal band, Jerry Smith, and I got my Friends of Coal lapel that wherever I go, I preach that gospel that we have this motto in Kentucky, Friends of Coal. I consider myself coal's best friend. And I just got back from Jacksonville with CSX. I just was working with their Curtis Bay facility export that's doing about 15 million tons a year of export coal. Went down to Charleston, South Carolina, looking at a new potential of a coal terminal. I really believe that the answer is export. I believe that this economy and what we've seen with coal and the demise of coal and coal severance, the CSX corporate men said that they're shipping half the coal out of what we call the Appalachian coal fields than they did 2 years ago. A lot of it's the pressure of the natural gas cheap cost. A lot of it is the Obama administration, EPA, and a lot of it is just market pressure from the Clean Air Act. And at the same time we have this equation, we've got India begging, Brazil, Russia, China begging for our coal. And we've got to create a new market. CSX conveyed to me that to come from East Kentucky or West Kentucky, it's just as cheap to go to Charleston, South Carolina, a straight shot, than what it would be to go north and over to Baltimore or up to Pier 9 DTA. So I think the true answer is we've never had to do this before. We've always had a great domestic market for our met coal and our steam coal. We've got to look on a broad stage international. It is true that Fitzsteel's bill, and we love to have 100% of our money back. We're going to be realistic and tell you that's not going to happen, but at least we can have the conversation, because I was in a school safety task force meeting yesterday, and we talked about having safety officers, Miss Lester, in each school, and having an armed safety officer to protect our children. And they are going to have the conversation. Well, if we give you more co-severance back, would you consider using part of that for that? So at least the conversation, and Representative Steele of Hazard has started the conversation. But be careful what we ask for when we say 100% back, we want to do away with multi-county, because we've got a great osteopath school up here that benefits greatly from the multi-county money that comes to that school, and we've doubled that enrollment. So you got to tweak that and be fine about it, but the answer truly to me is to look international for new markets that are there. And you know my involvement with the Coal of India and the Steel Minister of India. They've come and met with us, and a 10 million ton deal a year for 25 years, and there's a second 10 million ton deal waiting for us to do if we can start the first one. So Leslie and I, as chairman now of the full chair of Tourism and Energy, Leslie as the recent chair, we have worked tirelessly with Yubi and Ray to preach the gospel of the coal fields. And y'all, I'm fourth generation. I mine coal over in Phelps, and so it's real important. And what I want to tell you, everybody, everything we do in Kentucky touches this circle of life. That 6 cents per kilowatt hour power, Jimmy Keaton, is why Toyota and GM and Ford and 40% of the nation's aluminum is manufactured in West Kentucky. When you start messing with the economics of this East Kentucky, West Kentucky coal, then you start affecting everybody in this state. A $7 billion industry. So I could preach forever, but I'm going to go to Leslie.
Keith, thank you. Leslie, as you get ready to answer this question, just from me looking on the outside in, the people that are against coal, we never do hear anyone saying, but we can replace it with these jobs. I mean, they're talking about doing away with coal and the war on coal, but no one ever stepped up last year and said, the 3,000 people that's out of work, we've got an alternative plan for them. And I think our economy is starting to fill that. So I ask you to comment on the House bill, but also why there is no alternative plan from the people who are against coal in eastern Kentucky.
That's an interesting question, Keith. Let me first say it is. I'm very glad to be here this evening with my colleagues, and I want you all to know that it is an honor not only to represent the people of the 94th District, but to represent all the people of the region and the Commonwealth of Kentucky. So it's a true honor to represent you all and be in this position. With that said, game time. With that said, that's an interesting point that you raised. Quite frankly, I enjoy talking to folks downstate, or what we tend to refer to as the flatlands, and debate them about the issue of coal and the pros of coal against their thoughts about the cons of coal. Because usually if I can take them and I can sit down with them in a rational conversation and I can go through the process, by the time I get through, I won't say that I have them 100% convinced, but I have them thinking. I have a lot of the myths that they've been told that they believe. I have those myths corrected, and they've got facts. For example, any time I address a group about mining, particularly that of mountaintop development, and notice we don't say mountaintop mining, we say mountaintop development because that's what it is. We can develop with that process. Before I tell them the first words that come out of my mouth is I only promote and protect responsible mining. I am not for irresponsible mining, and I'll never be for anything that hurts the people or hurts the region or hurts nature. Okay? So, but that right off the bat gets their attention because they say, yes, there's a right way to do it and there's a wrong way to do it, and I only promote the right way to do it. And when you do it right, the benefits are beyond belief. So then you take that conversation and you begin to talk about the right way to do it. You begin to talk about proper mining. Then you begin to talk about the property you can create, the opportunities you can create. Let me tell you something. When I get into talking to them about, if you let me do this process properly, I'll give you cleaner water than what you started with. I'll actually, from an engineering standpoint, provide you with water you might not have had there. A couple of years ago, back when Representative Ansel Smith, he was representing a district over in Letcher County along with me, And in fact, he's been in business with Representative Hall. Back a couple of years ago, we had a serious drought situation. He could take you to an area that had been properly mined with mountaintop development, and the natural streams weren't flowing. But the ones that had been engineered as a result of the mountaintop mining actually still had flowing clean water. So think about that. Think about that. We can create good opportunities and good property options, and it's amazing what we can do with it. So trying to dispel the myths with folks who are anti-coal, anti-mining, it's really interesting to see their reactions when you talk about it and you begin to explain to them what we really do. Then I begin to talk about, look, we're creating property where we can actually do farming, where we can actually build housing that we don't have and get people out of the floodplain, where we can create entertainment activities, where we can do things, and this is something that really gets a lot of the folks down in Fayette County, particularly from farming areas. We look at them and we say, let me tell you something. Y'all go out and you hunt. You have property to do dove hunts, duck hunts, and these things. You know, you've got to have a certain type of property to do that on. When you got nothing but mountains, it's hard to do. I say, you all take that for granted. We can now do that. We can now provide activities like that we couldn't have before in the mountain region. So there's a lot of positive things from it, and being able to have these conversations. I will say I've got some fairly liberal friends. I've got some fairly liberal friends that are members of the legislature that I've actually brought up here. And when I can take them one-on-one and I can take them out and I can show them what I'm talking about, you ought to see their reactions. Nobody ever told them that. They're not hearing the whole story. And that's what's important, is that we get the entire story out there. And it's like Representative Hall said, we are preaching every day. We're telling everyone that will listen that these are good things. It's not bad. Now let me kind of go forward with Representative Steele's bill. Yes, we are all 100% for that bill. Is it going to happen? No. The reason is what used to be, I guess, a $130 million hole. I don't guess it'll be a $130 million hole now, since that number is dropping. But that is the hole we'd have to fix in the general fund budget. That's what when our folks downstate start talking about stop mining, stop coal mining, I'm like, okay, that's great and wonderful. How you going to fix this hole? How you going to fix this deficit right here? So that is obviously something we'd have to look at. But I tell you what, when we start talking about it and we start debating this piece of legislation, that's going to open some eyes to some folks who realize what bearing coal has on the general fund and the rest of the Commonwealth of Kentucky. They're going to see. But let's talk about the solutions part of it. You know, so what do they offer as solutions? They don't. They just say it's bad and it ought to go away. Representative Hall and I are working on a piece of legislation right now, and it's not for announcement, but in talking about the solutions, where do we go? What do we do with our future in this region, not only to continue to work on coal mining, but what provide other opportunities? And we're looking at a couple other energy opportunities that we don't know how successful we'll be with it in this session. They're probably going to be kind of surprised. People are going to be shocked by them, but we're going to come at it because it's time for us now to start talking about other alternatives and diverse our ways, with coal leading the charge and being a partner in that. Because what that's going to do is that's going to continue to push our coal industry, but at the same time make us a partner in other industries to where we can come back and provide jobs for our people and other opportunities. And that's what we've got to create. And even though we feel like we're being the industry that's being affected, you know what? Sometimes you just got to step up, you got to take charge, and you got to be the leader, and you got to say, hey, my industry's hurting, but my industry's willing to come to the forefront, become a partner, and go forward. Now, like I said, we're not ready to make any announcements or talk about it because some of the things we're talking about proposing could be quite controversial, and we're ready for that. But we've got to talk about them. We've got to look at these alternatives. Now, what else do we hope to accomplish besides doing that for us here and for the Commonwealth? Because we're willing to take these steps and we're willing to go out on that limb, it gives us that platform to go to the federal level and say, look, it's time we come to the table and we compromise. And the compromise is this. If we're willing to go forward and we're willing to diversify and we're willing to look at other alternatives, help us with our industry. Now, it's like Representative Hall said, and I agree with him 100%. I think exporting is our future as far as what we do with coal. With that said, we won't go down the burning route, but at least lighten up with us on the mining route. Let us get those reserves out of the ground. Let us work people and let us continue to do things if we're willing to compromise and come to the table and do some things that have been suggested as well. So, is it pie in the sky? I don't know. I'm one of these individuals who approaches things with the worst they can do is tell me no, and I'm not going to give up. So I think we've got some good opportunities in front of us. I think we've got some good things to talk about. And what's important is that even though we care 100% about coal mining and its future, and we never want to see that go away, we have to open up our minds and we have to look at the big, big picture, and we have to strategize on where are we going to be 10 years, 20 years, and 30 years down the road with coal being a partner leading the charge.
Thank you, State Representative Combs. Last year there was a baseball game on before I get to State Senator Jones. And as this baseball game was being telecast, a foul ball was hit into the stands. And the cameras panned over to the stands. And a teenage kid caught the ball. And when he sat back down, there was two little 7-year-old kids behind him with separate fathers. And the one 7-year-old started crying. He started stomping his feet, pulling at his dad's jersey and everything, and the dad couldn't control him. The other little 7-year-old gently applauded for the kid who caught the ball in front of them. What happened next was the manager of the baseball team sent out one of the people from the dugout, and he went into the stands, and the cameras followed him as he went up to the kid who was crying and handed him the ball. And again, the young man who was applauding stood there and applauded. And even the television announcers said, boy, we just showed a lesson. Senator Jones, sometimes I think in eastern Kentucky, we're the fine young man that's standing there and applauding. Anytime anybody gets anything downstate, we applaud them. We're real happy. Anytime it's anything that we're trying to get in eastern Kentucky, they're the little kid that's stomping the feet. It's as if though they don't want us to have anything, even if it's the coal severance tax money. So if you would address House Bill 38 and also what we're going to have to do in eastern Kentucky, maybe to stomp our feet a little bit.
Well, Keith, thank you very much. And I first of all want to say it's a pleasure to be here tonight. We have 3 committee chairmen here to my left, the chairman of Transportation, the chairman of Energy and Tourism, and the chairman of the Budget Review Subcommittee on Transportation. And fortunately, I serve on the Senate Appropriations and Revenue Committee. And all of the things that we do in Frankfort depend on money. And all the investments, this building would not be here but for the coal severance tax. The work that's taken place here in downtown Pikeville would not be possible but for the coal severance tax. The water and sewer projects throughout Pike County and throughout eastern Kentucky. I mean, we can go down the list of the projects that have been funded from the coal severance tax. Now, before I address Keith's questions, I have my phone here for a reason. I want to put it in perspective, the situation that we're facing. When, and some of you may have heard the fiscal court talking about the priority list for coal severance tax projects that were earmarked. Now, and I'm not sure if some people may be trying to point the finger on how we got into this situation, but when we do a budget, the 4 of us sit down and look at the coal severance tax, and we look at the projects that various government agencies, school districts, counties, the city governments are asking us to help fund. And we get projections from the budget office. Well, when we did the last budget, the projections for fiscal year 2013 were $6.2 million for Pike County and $6.6 million for fiscal year 14. I'm going to use Pike County as the example here. Well, those projections have now been revised down from 6.2 million in fiscal year 13 to 3.6 million. And in fiscal year 14, they have been revised down from 6.6 million to 3.1 million. So more than a 50% reduction in the coal severance tax. And of course, representing Johnson and Martin County, we have seen similar decreases. And I noticed in the Herald Leader the other day that coal production in Martin County was down 46%. Now this poses a serious threat to every business in eastern Kentucky, every person in eastern Kentucky, because we're all dependent on the coal industry. And I commend Representative Steele for introducing the legislation. I think we're all in agreement that it would be extremely difficult to pass the bill, particularly in these financial times that we're in. But as you can see, there's not going to be enough money in the next 2 years of coal severance tax receipts to fund the projects that we put in the first year of the budget. So all the projects, all of which were worthwhile, are going to have to be pushed into the following biennium. Now, you know, we have been blessed here, in particular in Pike County, Martin County, because we've had so much coal severance tax money that we've been able to do a lot of things that people in some parts of Kentucky have basically resented us for. You know, we've been doing water and sewer projects and infrastructure projects when other parts of the state are basically not able to fund any projects. But Keith is absolutely right. We have people, what Keith was talking about is probably the best example is the UPike situation. You know, we talked about creating a public university in eastern Kentucky. You know, the Herald Leader, the Courier Journal, the presidents of all the other universities are criticizing that proposal. And you know, when I came back from law school in 1994, there was not a single family doctor in Pikeville, a single family physician in Pikeville that was accepting new patients. And fortunately, because of Governor Patton and some other folks who had the foresight to address the health care needs of the people of eastern Kentucky, we had to build our own medical school because, in my opinion, the administration at the University of Kentucky and the University of Louisville did not take adequate steps to address the health care needs in eastern Kentucky. Now, we basically, for decades, have been a second-class citizen when it comes to being Kentuckians, at least in the eyes of some people. And it's time that we're going to have to be much more vocal in standing up for ourselves. Because it's amazing. I had a friend of mine from law school that came up here. He's born and raised in Louisville. Totally amazed by what we've accomplished in eastern Kentucky. The image that he had in his mind of eastern Kentucky was something completely different than what he saw when he came here. And that's one of the problems that we have, not just in Frankfort, but in this country. There is a huge distinction between urban America and rural America. And we're seeing that with the gun control issue right now. And there is a huge distinction in urban Kentucky versus rural Kentucky. Simply put, the people in the Golden Triangle, northern Kentucky, Louisville, and Lexington, very few of those folks understand the coal industry. And on the other side of that, they could probably say the same thing when we're talking about the problems facing the horse industry. I don't understand the horse industry. I didn't grow up going to Keeneland or Churchill Downs or those kind of places. And that's something that we're going to have to work very hard to address because, and it's not just in terms of funding government projects, but it's in terms of public sentiment. The thing that is appalling to me, and we've talked about the export coal market. Now think about this. We have hundreds of years of coal here in the United States that we could burn and power this country. But yet we have a regulatory system in place that's forcing our utility companies to have to switch from coal to natural gas. But yet we're going to sell our coal to China and India and other countries. We're going to fuel their economic and industrial revolution with American coal and Kentucky coal at the same time that we're putting regulatory practices in place that the American consumers who ultimately pay the power bills can't afford, that American businesses and industries are going to be put at a competitive disadvantage because of the increasing utility bills. So it doesn't make sense what's happening here, and it's a travesty. The problem we have is the regulatory changes combined with the market conditions, the cheap price of natural gas, have forced us in a very short period of time to have to rethink everything that we're doing in terms of economic development and infrastructure development in Eastern Kentucky. And that's a huge problem because I don't think anybody could have been prepared for this type of rapid change in what we're seeing in our economy. But it's going to be a challenge going forward, Keith. There's no question.
You know, I got to tell you, Senator, I don't know that you could have planned it any better. That you're talking about U-Pike. They're behind us in the expo. The national anthem is playing. All I can think of as a marketing guy is get that tape. That's going to be a great ad for you when you run for re-election. I was privileged to be the chairman of the Kentucky Broadcasters Association a couple of years ago. And as chairman, you get to bring the fall convention to your hometown. When I mentioned bringing the statewide convention of all radio and television, 285 radio stations and all the television stations from Louisville to Lexington, northern Kentucky to Pikeville, I got some pretty tough emails. I really did, as to what in the world was I thinking, what had the Kentucky Broadcasters Association dipped to, and why would we be here? After standing tall and not giving in, we brought the fall convention here. We had it right here in the expo. I took them to Raven Rock to golf. I sent them to the Breaks. They went on an elk tour, and when the convention was over, my email blew up that it was the absolute best convention we'd ever had and the most beautiful place on earth. So I was really tickled over that. Senator Jones, you did mention U-Pike, so we've got the team behind us. They're playing, the girls and the boys tonight, so let's go to that. This was very important to our town, and, you know, I've had lunches with friends that have said, if only the dream that Governor Patton has tried to get across of U-Pike being a state university, thinking about someday of having the Lady Bears and the Bears playing Division I basketball behind us in this arena. I mean, there's a lot of high anticipation of what that could be. And we'll start off with Representative Collins on your stance on the University of Pikeville being a state university.
Thank you, Keith. And I've always been very much for that. The people in the last session, when the bill come forward, so many of the people didn't understand. They had their universities in their hometown, but they didn't understand what it would do for the people in East Kentucky. The traveling that the kids in East Kentucky has to do to get to a school or a university. So it would be very, very helpful if we had a state university, which it's a university, but we don't get the funding that the state universities get from the general fund. And of course, I understand there's a pilot program going on right now of Governor Patton and Governor Beshear have worked out, where they're doing some things to see how it worked out. You know, I've always been an advocate of that first semester or first year. It may not be a bad idea for a kid to stay at home and go to school, because that first semester they realize when it's over, gee, I failed some courses. What am I going to do? Because lots of them it's party time. Some of them experienced that. But sometimes I think it's good if they spend a semester at home, if they want to go somewhere else, if they should. But if you have the university here, they shouldn't have to go anywhere else. But, and there again, anymore, the kids seem like they pick where they want to go. The parents don't seem to have much say-so in it anymore, of where they allow the kids to go to school. But you would think if we had a university here at home, the parents maybe would have a little bit more say-so and try to encourage them to go to school here at home, because the expenses so much less of being here at home, where you could travel to school and wouldn't have to maybe stay in the dormitories, even though I think it's a great thing for your social life to be on campus, staying in the dormitories. So I'm very much in support of this, and And like I say, the last session, it just came about suddenly that there was so much confusion from all over the state. He was getting discussion from everybody, and it kind of caused some problems there with the other people all over the state of thinking that their university wasn't going to get the money that they were getting now, thinking that if another university came in and shared the money, then each university before that would not get as much money as they have in the past. So, yes, I am for the idea in that respect.
Thank you, Representative Collins. One thing that was mentioned to me when we were talking about this, I had an individual say to me from downstate, "You already have a state university. It's called Eastern Kentucky." I said, "No, they just took our name." So, if you would, Keith Hall, address the issue.
I'm always real candid, so hold me back on this one. My chairlady here was the sponsor of the bill, and I want to tell everybody in this room, God bless Speaker Greg Stumbo, because he spoke softly and swung a big stick. I'll tell you, Cody. But as I said here, and I look at my comrades, I want to tell this to Cody, my student over here. I did my UK tour my freshman and sophomore year. Had a good time, Philip. Had a good time. Keeneland and playing ball and games. But I tell you, I got a little bit smart my junior and senior. I came back to Pikeville College, University of Pikeville. Steph is on the dean's list 2 years in a row. I got an education there. They educated me. And what a great school. What a great school. We've had two great governors, I think, in this century, past century. His name was Bert T. Combs that built our Mountain Parkway, little kin to Leslie, and Paul Patton. And I got to paint a picture for you when it comes to this UPIKE thing, because right here's the lady that led the charge. But if you come to the House floor where I sat, I'm in the aisle seat, and to the left of me is Hubie and Leslie. Behind me is Floor Leader Moorhead man, Rocky Atkins. In front of me is, I call him Martin Luther King Jr., Kentucky State guy, Derek Graham. I'll tell you what, we come in that house floor many a time. I thought I would take my jacket off. We're going to knuckle. We're going to get with it, because it was appalling to me that all we had done and all that Paul Patton had done. He's considered the education governor. That how dare you and how shame on you that you wouldn't support the University of Pikeville helping those kids of East Kentucky. I mean, it's been a joke. You called East Kentucky and Richmond, Kentucky. I'm 200 miles from Peter Creek to the capital, so that ain't East Kentucky to me, but University of Pikeville is. And that being said, it was very contentious. Very contentious. I am glad today to say the conversation continues. We've got the juniors and seniors now, free tuition with co-severance, thanks to Leslie's warlike effort. But it was, in my 13 years there, that may be as much as a contentious issue. But let me give credit where credit's due. President Ramsey, University of Louisville, who was Paul Patton's budget director, he's been a good man. He's helped this area. They're talking about a dental school idea, a pilot program coming to Pikeville. And he was one of the guys that was supportive. And when we have the RAM clinic to have the health care to our less fortunate, Louisville sends their whole dental team here. So there were some bright spots with that legislation. It's almost like the conversation needs to continue. But here's the last thing I want to say, and I'm a firm believer in this. A rising tide lifts all ships. This was good for the whole state to do this on behalf of East Kentucky, University of Kentucky, University of Louisville, Murray, and all those schools. We need this as a university. And I'm so proud of the job that Paul Patton's done, doubling the enrollment, doubling the osteopath school, and the impact it has made in this area. You have to go back to what the University of Pikeville has done, is doing. James Hurley will be a great protege replacement, a young, energetic young man that will take over for Paul. But it's the right thing to do in this state. And like Leslie says, there comes time you got to preach the gospel. You got to convince them. This is the right thing. So I think we will continue having the conversation. Here's the beauty. Let's look to the east. Now we have a Senate president from, guess where? Clay County. Man, I love that. A speaker, we're from Floyd County. It's our time, Bill Baird. The east is its time. We have a window of opportunity here with leadership in the House and the Senate to get real things done for our people. We waited a lifetime for this opportunity. It finally is here.
Thank you, Representative Hall. You know, I think there comes a time when you have great leaders like Governor Patton that he's made his living, his legacy is clear, and then he starts thinking about life and he says, what is the right thing to do? And Governor Patton started this to say, I want the University of Pikeville to be a state university because it's the right thing for my region and my people. Leslie, you took this and run with it. I had many interviews with you on the radio and everything else. This was something near and dear to your heart, and I've got to agree with Keith. We owe you an applause for the work that you've done.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you all. Yeah, I'm very, very passionate about this subject. I've obviously, having spent 23 years with the institution as chief financial officer, and watching it progress and develop all those years, yeah, it's like a part of my family. So I'm very passionate when it comes to issues that involve, and you'll have to forgive me, I always have to call it Pikeville College, but yes, it's now UPike. So now, Keith, I could take the rest of the evening on this subject, but I'll try to get to the intricate parts of it. Let's talk about not that it was the right thing to do, which it was, but let's talk about the underlying concepts, the basic foundation as to why the idea was even put out there to start with. First of all, if you look at a geographic map of the state and you look at where all the other universities were across the state, you could see them very strategically placed. But there was this section in southeast Kentucky that was missing. It didn't have it, and it was just like a hole in the rest of the map. When you inserted it, whether it be University of Pikeville or whatever, it's missing right there. Now let's take that down. Let's take that to the statistics that justified why we went down that road. When you look at southeastern Kentucky and you look at our high school graduation rates, very positive thing. We have students graduating and going to college at an above state average. That's good. That's real good. But when you go back, you track those students, and you look at the statistics later, we fall well below the baccalaureate graduation rates. Okay? So not only do you want to see students go to college, you want to see them complete college. That's the big thing. Now, what are the underlying factors? Why was that happening, and why does that happen? Well, for financial reasons, a lot of our students had to go to state universities because that's what they could afford. Now, we've got an abundant group of private institutions in southeast Kentucky, starting with the University of Pikeville, going to Union, going to Cumberland. You've got several good institutions, and they're private, but they're also very expensive. All right, there's a lot of financial aid. A lot of those students qualify for financial aid. University of Pikeville students, we're in the 90% of students qualifying for financial aid. But the cost of education in a private institution, it's still expensive. Now, so the majority of those students could only afford a public education. All right, they could go to Eastern, they could go to Moorhead, they could go to UK, they could go to U of L, they could go as far as Western if they wanted to. All right, let me go back, let me digress here just a second and go to the concept of why we started the medical school. It's like Senator Jones said. What was happening was that doctors were being trained at UK and U of L, but they weren't coming back as primary care doctors in eastern Kentucky. We had a shortage of primary care doctors. What Chad Perry down in Johnson County realized is, by golly, you train them, you bring them here, you train them, they stay here. That's the concept. Thus, we started a med school, and we proved that point unbelievably, because what we did was we trained primary care doctors under the assumption that if you train them in the region, they stay in the region. And that has been miraculous. That has proven beyond our wildest dreams to be successful. The same thing is evident in an undergraduate situation, particularly in today's times. You've got students who want to go to college. They want every aspect of that 4-year experience. But when you send them to Lexington, even when you send them to Moorhead from here, believe it or not, that is an additional financial burden on them, okay? So if you can get them here and you can train them somewhere close to home, not only are the results greater that they will stay in school, they'll complete it and get that bachelor's degree, and by golly, they'll come back and they'll stay in your region and they'll make your region better. Now here's another argument. Why do we want to do that? Because we don't have jobs for them. So we're training them, we're educating them, come home to do what? Well, let's think about that for a second. That's kind of a chicken and an egg question. Part of bettering the educational system and educating people is to give them the knowledge that they need to create their own future. If you don't educate people, you don't create opportunities. So if they're educated and they learn and they understand how to progress themselves, a lot of times they can create their own opportunities in their own future. So if we don't broaden our horizons in that particular perspective, we're selling ourselves short, and we're setting our sights too short. We need to set our sights higher and create our own future. And in my opinion, and you can disagree with me if you like, you create that at your own future. So through education, that's what we can do. Now, yes, it was very, very disappointing, some of the reactions we got. It kind of goes back to the coal question we had earlier. People resent you when you have things like we had the coal severance funds, and we're able to do certain things in our communities that other communities downstate don't have those extra resources to do. But at the same time, I saw some areas of our state who all of a sudden got real protective of their turf, and I wanted to go to them and say, whoa, time out. All I want is what you have, and I want to try to do it for myself. Then when I saw that it was all about the funding issue, and we came to the table with our own solution of funding it with ourselves, with our own money. You talk about, you had our local people who said, why should we have to pay for it ourselves? Why are we always having to take care of it ourselves? They don't have to do that. But the point was, we've got to look beyond that. The point is, we want to improve our educational system. We want to give our students the same opportunity they could have anywhere else in this Commonwealth. And by golly, if we got to do it ourselves, we're going to do it ourselves. So now, when we proposed the funding mechanism, that lightened some people up, and they were a little more tolerant of the idea, but they were still threatened. Thus, we came up with the compromise bill, which we almost had passed. What happened in that midnight hour, I don't know, but I know that I was right there on the Senate floor up until 11:45 of the final night, speaking to the majority floor leader at that time, saying, are we going to pass this or not? And I still wasn't sure with 15 minutes on the clock what we were going to do, but obviously we weren't able to. What has happened since then that I think has been very positive and is opening people's minds up on this very question and how important it is, and the fact that it still needs to be debated, discussed, and the idea of the University of Pikeville becoming public, in my words, is it's been postponed. And that is, the governor, through this debate, saw the need to at least investigate and truly let's document the information. Thus, he came up with the pilot project to take in a few counties and invest some multi-county money in this, and let's see what we can do. It's been a little slow getting started because we pushed it so close into the fall semester. We had a tough time getting it off the ground. I'm very, very anxious to see our second semester numbers and how well we've done from there. But conceptually, I think it is the right thing to do. I think we're on the right track. I will tell you that as soon as we get back in session on Tuesday, I will refile the compromise bill, which basically gets into statute this idea. And when I say the compromise bill, I'm talking about 36 counties across this state, not just southeast Kentucky. So we're going to go back. We're going to put the compromise bill back into play, because the statistics are still there. I'm kind of jumping around here, but one thing I want to make sure everybody knows is this. Here's what came out of that whole exercise last semester. In order to justify the road the governor was going down with us as a partner, he had a study done. When that study came back, not only did that study overwhelmingly prove the data we were saying was there about the baccalaureate graduation rates, but it also proved that we were nowhere close to meeting those standards across the rest of the Commonwealth. So what it created was the governor has now created a rural access task force, of which Governor Pat and I are on. In fact, we meet Monday, and it has brought all of the private institutions, the state institutions, the community and technical college system to the table to sit down and say, we've got to look at this information because we've got a job to do. We are not meeting that baccalaureate rate, and we have got to do that across the Commonwealth of Kentucky. So it's opened up a lot of eyes. So we may not have accomplished becoming a state university last year, but I'll tell you what, we have certainly opened the doors on taking a look at our higher education system across the state, and a lot of interesting questions are coming out of that. Let me bring up two big financial things. Where the rest of the other state universities were concerned about their funding being, impeded by us, what I already knew as having spent so many years in higher education and the budgeting process, but it's becoming so evident to everyone else. It's a real education process for everyone. Do you realize how much all these institutions are spending on, and you're not supposed to use this term anymore, but forgive me for not knowing it in the modern world, but remediation of college students for the first 2 years of college? Which means we're not getting it done through those first 12 years prior to coming to college. We're spending a fortune. So a fortune of our state dollars, when we're supposed to be giving kids a 4-year education, we're still trying to get the first 2 years that they should have gotten in high school or in the earlier years. So it's costing our state a fortune. So we're already losing out on the 4-year degree program right there. Second thing, this is something where President Andrews and I, by the way, we've gotten to be real good friends up there in Moorhead. In fact, I want so far that we have brought President Andrews and Moorhead to the table, and they will be sitting at the table with us when we present or testify in the compromise bill this session. So Moorhead is working with us, and they understand what we're trying to accomplish here. But let me be very specific about Moorhead. And this is true of them, but it's also true of the other universities. You take our state dollars, which we want to educate Kentucky students, right? I want those monies going for Kentucky students to educate them. In order for them to reach this baccalaureate attainment level, the way they're doing it at your other state institutions is they're bringing in foreign students who, yes, have the academic credentials and they will graduate, and we're spending our state dollars on foreign students to meet that baccalaureate attainment level. Now, that's great. That's wonderful. But our state's really hurting financially. I don't know about the rest of you, but I want to spend our money on our students. Now, I could go on for hours, so I'll leave it.
Well, that was a little passion, wasn't it? You know, in eastern Kentucky, we do have problems, like everyone has problems anywhere. But when you get down to it, whether it's the horrific drug problem that we have, poverty, or whatever it may be, time and time again, the answer always comes back that education is the answer. That will cure everything, in my mind, that we have going on. And Senator Jones, a lot of people might think that taking the coal severance tax money from us or our minerals from us is the rape of eastern Kentucky. But I think a lot of people now believe that the rape of eastern Kentucky is taking the young men and women who have great minds and, as Leslie said, taking them off to their education and not having them come back to this region and be a part of it. If you would address the situation also.
Well, Keith, a lot of people refer to this as the brain drain. Our best and brightest, virtually always, they move away to go to college, they graduate, they're established in the new community, and they don't come back. and we're losing the brain power that we need to transform Eastern Kentucky. Now, let me give you a statistic, and this is an older statistic, Kay, that but only about 67% of the freshmen that start high school are getting a high school diploma. Now, think about that. You know, if you look at what's happening in other industrialized nations, I mean, this is not only are we falling farther and farther behind other industrialized nations in terms of math and science attainment. It's a fundamental problem that affects every segment of our society. And in Eastern Kentucky, we don't have a lot of room for error. Now, the thing that frustrates me the most is when, and I'm going to first of all say this, Leslie Combs has done more on this issue than anyone ever thought possible. And she's an absolute asset to Eastern Kentucky. And I believe that all of us working together, at some point, you will see a public university in Eastern Kentucky. Because, you know, there's a couple things that you can identify in any community that spurs economic development and that will transform a community, whether it's a rural community or an urban, you know, a part of an urban inner city. One is if you have access to an interstate highway, that clearly stimulates economic growth. The other is an institution of higher learning, and particularly a public university. If you go down to North Carolina and look at the Research Triangle Park area, you know, we're so far behind what they've done in North Carolina when you have all the state university system and the higher education system that they have. But yet, the people who have, I guess, our predecessors, I'm not sure what their focus was on, but when you look at the map of the public universities in Kentucky, you know, I graduated from Eastern Kentucky University. It was about a 2-hour and 45-minute drive from Virgie to Richmond. Now, that was a substantial burden on me and my family. My parents fortunately were able to help me do that. But there are a lot of students that can't do that. And but the thing I want to address more than anything, Keith, is when this idea came about, you had, and I'll call names, you had the county judge in Harlan County coming out against this proposal. Now, let me tell you, the most important function that we play as state legislators and as state government in general plays is to educate our children. Our responsibility, our number one responsibility, is to provide a top quality public education to Kentucky's kids. And it's the only way our kids in Eastern Kentucky, I've got one that's in kindergarten, it's the only way they're going to be able to compete. It's the only way Eastern Kentucky is going to be able to compete, is to raise our educational attainment levels, not only at the secondary level, but also at the college level. But yeah, we have county judges from rural Eastern Kentucky counties that were against this proposal because they're saying it would interfere with their ability to create jobs at the local level. Well, let me ask you something. How successful have we been in terms of recruiting out? We don't have a Toyota in Eastern Kentucky. We've not lured any of these huge factories to Eastern Kentucky, and there's some reasons for that. No commercial air service, no interstate highways, and it's an impediment because there is no public university system in Eastern Kentucky. And we have to change the way we think in Eastern Kentucky. Our local and community leaders have to raise the bar. Now, you know, none of us at this table will sit back and let somebody criticize Eastern Kentucky. But I think we have to expect more from ourselves as Eastern Kentuckians. I think everybody agrees with that. We have to raise the bar about what we expect from government, what we expect from our educational institutions, because we have set the bar too low for too long. And when you have local government officials that come out and say that they're against creating a publicly funded university in Eastern Kentucky, that's mind-boggling. It's a very narrow-minded and short-sighted way of looking to the future of this region. Because if we keep doing things the way we've done them for the last 3 or 4 decades, then we're going to be in serious trouble. We're already, as I told you, the numbers on the coal severance tax. We've got to start doing things differently, and we can't wait. Now, hopefully at some point there will be some regulatory changes that we'll see the coal industry bounce back. But I can tell you right now, the economists that prepare these projections, and they had a graph at one of the Appropriations and Revenue Committee meetings that showed the upswings and downturns in the coal economy in eastern Kentucky. The one thing that they made clear, though, is that in today's environment, in the market conditions, in the regulatory environment, there's nothing that they see on the horizon that would substantially change, in their opinion, the state of the coal economy in eastern Kentucky. So that makes education that much more important. And if we could create a public university here, it would create an opportunity to create jobs. I mean, I think if you look at what's happened to this community since the medical school went in, it's phenomenal in a short period of time. And I think a public university would do that not just for Pike County, but for all of eastern Kentucky.
Senator Jones, thank you. I agree with you, and I commend you because you're absolutely right. This is the Southeast Chamber of Commerce, but we don't have every county involved with the Southeast Chamber of Commerce. For some odd reason in this region, we tend to have me and mine instead of we and ours. And I agree with you. Until we can come together and realize that it's of the benefit of everyone and be one voice and be heard, quite frankly, they're winning by default because we are sometimes our own worst enemy. And your comments were very well spoken. Jared picked up a microphone, which means the list of 10 questions that I have here, we're not going to get to them. We got through 2, which was really good, and I think the panel did a wonderful job. Let's give them all a hand for their answers. What we're going to do now is open it up to the floor. We're going to give you a chance to ask a question, and Jared has the microphone, so if you'll kindly raise your hand, Jared will come to you, and we'll get started.
In trying to deal with the deficit that the state has, and one area was the pension plan change and maybe converting state employees to a 401k type approach. Is that something that has any chance of becoming reality?
We'll start with Representative Collins.
There's a proposal to do what they call a hybrid plan. Part that and part with the old system, giving the people the chance to select what they want to do, guaranteeing them, I think, 4% on their whatever they put in, and any increase beyond 4% of what those funds would make would go back to the state. There's the people that's in the retirement system now would not be affected from that. They will continue to do the retirement, but it's the new people that's coming in. And I think a lot of things have happened in the retirement system that have happened that shouldn't have happened. We have let everybody that wanted to into the retirement system. Part are paying their fair share, part are not paying their fair share. We're allowing people to go outside and pick up high-paying jobs and factor those into the retirement system and tripling their retirement. There's some, I guess, laws and constitutional questions on whether we can stop that or not in the discussion. But it's not fair, and there's questions on the legislative retirement. The legislative retirement is really no better than some of the state and teacher retirement. Excuse me, but, I'm not a member of the legislative retirement system, but I serve on the board of the legislative and the judicial retirement system. The judicial retirement have problems because of the liability of the payout each month. Now, in the teacher retirement, we raised the contribution level for employee and employer starting out at 0.50. We also said if you retire before you're 65, then you will pay part of your insurance. Insurance is no guarantee. It doesn't have to be furnished by the teacher retirement, but they pay the Medicare rate toward their insurance in the teacher retirement. So we think that the teacher retirement system is pretty solid at this point. Always room for improvement. But the state retirement system, state employees, other than that, are the problem. The county employees, they're paying high premiums on the investment on their retirement. We're letting some of the other people in that's not paying their fair share. So hopefully we are going to have a lot of discussion on this, and hopefully it'll come out to where, doesn't say we won't have to visit it again, but hopefully we'll start the process of funding the retirement system. The state borrowed some money from the retirement system and really hadn't paid it all back. That's just like the National Social Security. Our Social Security funds was borrowed from with the federal government. It's never been paid back. So Social Security would be solid if the funds had stayed in that. So we've got some big problems in the state as the retirement, and hopefully we will work it out and start it on the path to where it'll be much more sound.
Would anyone else like to comment on the issue?
I was on the Pension Task Force Committee that studied that issue, and what I want to tell the members of the audience is that we brought everybody we knew, Pew Research, other states, how you did what you did. This is not a problem just in Kentucky. This is a national problem. Several things we identified was there's not a lot of comfort in strictly the cash balance plan. Like you manage your own, do your own thing. We know we can't continue funding the system as it is currently. Nobody saw the demise of the markets in 2008 when it went down 17%, when it went down 12% more in 2009. We kind of came back in 10 and 11. But here was an appalling statistic to me. The board that manages that committee today had a 0% return for this year. Hey, I made 12% on my 401k. So there is problems in who and how we manage. The task force recommended expanding this committee to make sure that every region of the state was represented. We have a representative from the east, one from the west, and not just the Golden Triangle controlled it. That was an issue. We looked at the hybrid cash balance, what other states were doing, and in the process there was a comfort zone in the 4% guaranteed. And I want to mention what Representative Collins said. And if you made a better return than 4%, let's say it was 8, you as the person got 3% of that, and 1 went back into the retirement system, which everybody benefited. So there's some benefits there. Here was the problem. One side of the aisle, we call that the other party, and then the party. One side of the aisle wanted to put all the impetus on the backs of the employees, raise their contribution rate. That was not the answer. One side of the aisle wanted to say, let's go borrow $2 billion like we did to solve the unemployment fund at 2% interest. Not bad. We couldn't get an agreement on that. One side of the aisle wanted to go strictly, you're on your own, and that was not the answer. So we had a great task force, and it was very vetted. I look for, and I've been rumored to hear in this year that Governor Beshear will probably put us in special session possibly to address this issue. But we really got to hear some great testimony. The answer, whether we're all in one, you got judicial, you got teachers, you know, all these different retirement systems, KRS, KTRS, all these systems. And so we continue to have the conversation, but here's what we know. We can't continue on the path we've been on. It's not sustainable. There has to be changes. Old employees will be okay. New employees going in will have a whole new ball game, and it'll be a whole new level playing field. But this is just not something indigenous to Kentucky. Every state basically had this problem.
Representative Combs?
Are we going to address it this session? We have to address it this session. As far as I'm concerned, and I think probably the rest of the guys up here agree, it is the #1 issue we've got in this general session. And we are going to have to not only address the particulars of the system and how we go forward, but obviously the biggest issue, in my opinion, is the funding piece of it. Just one little statistic that's harrowing is the collected liability to actually pay out promised benefits is $33 billion. Okay? Scare you a little bit? Yeah. That's a lot of money. we've got to address this issue. And like I said, I think it's the number one issue on our agenda.
All right. Senator Jones?
Well, I've looked at the plan that is probably going to be filed next week in the Senate. David, the problem I see with the plan that the task force, or that's based on the task force report, is that West Virginia went to a hybrid defined contribution plan, and after a couple years they went back, as I understand it, to a defined benefit plan, because one of the problems is you're losing, for your new hires coming in, you're losing their contributions into the current system. So you're not having new money coming into it from your younger workers. Another problem is, as I understand it, it assumes, we're going to be doing the catch-up of $200 to $300 million, of infusion this year, and in subsequent years it's going to take that much or more, because they're looking at a 7.5% return on investment. For the numbers to work in this bill, they're saying it's going to have to be a 7.5% return on investment. That's not realistic. Now, if you look at, in my opinion, what happened, when the market was running wild, we didn't have to make the contributions, because up until about 2000, KRS was fully funded. Well, you go into an economic downturn in 2001, and I think most people would agree we've never really recovered fully from that downturn, even though the markets are up. I personally don't think it'll work. I think that I don't think that the amount of money we're going to put into it, with the anticipated, or the assumption of a 7.5% return on investment, is realistic. And I think that, in my opinion, and as much as I'm opposed to borrowing additional money, as cheap as money is right now, it would help us catch up if we did some type of bond issue. Now, there's a lot of debate over that. But, and I think yesterday we had a meeting in Frankfurt to talk about the proposed legislation. Senate President Robert Stivers made a good point. He said that, we're at the point now the hole is dug, but we don't want to dig it any deeper, and that's essentially what this bill does, is it basically stops the hole from getting deeper, but I'm not sure it's going to fix it. So, and I'm not sure anybody has a firm grasp on how to fix it at this point, other than infusing money into the system that we don't have to infuse into it.
Thank you, Senator Jones. David, thank you for the question. Jared, would you like to have another one? Yes, please.
Okay, on the national level, you see that Senator Rand Paul and most recently Senator Mitch McConnell has hopped on board to bringing industrial hemp to the state of Kentucky. What is the panel's opinion on this?
Representative Collins.
Thank you. I did a drug education program in Johnson County for several years. I did quite a bit of research on the hemp and marijuana, which is likely one and the same. But the argument now is law enforcement say, and I believe that if you have a field of hemp, marijuana is involved with it, planted in it, you cannot tell the difference unless you send that to a lab. Now, hemp contained about a 1% THC, or tetrahydrocannabinol, which is the drug that does the damage to individuals. Marijuana, Kentucky marijuana, is the best in the country or out of the country, because it runs from 3 to 15%. They bring Mexican marijuana in and mix it with Kentucky marijuana for the volume to make it the best. Now, people don't think marijuana does a lot of damage to people. We have a little unencumbered section in the brain, which is the memory section. And it's clear. People that use marijuana for a period of time, and I know we're talking about hemp, but if it gets interchanged, people that use marijuana for a period of time, that little section in the brain of the memory section starts to turn dark. And it's also said that someone smokes 3 or 4 joints of marijuana for 3 or 4 months will do more damage to the lungs than a 1 pack a day cigarette smoker for 20 years. Now, if this is the case, do we want to take the chance of growing hemp and take the chance of marijuana being filtered in with it. And it said, some people say, well, it won't cross-pollinate. Well, I don't know. But a lot of those things and involved, and when I taught the students that I had in a drug education course against the problems with marijuana and the drugs like that, I cannot vote for the hemp bill.
Thank you, Representative Collins. Representative Hall.
And the good book says, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. It's an education, Senator Jones. You made that comment. It's an education. I co-sponsored the bill last year, Cody. And let me tell you why. Here's the facts. Here's the facts. The United States is the only industrialized nation that prevents hemp from being grown in the United States. In 1930s, prior to the World War II, the largest cash crop in Kentucky was hemp. If you plant hemp side by side to marijuana, it eradicates the marijuana, because this is a 1 TCH, 0.1. It neutralizes and eradicates the marijuana. Shay uses lotion, hemp lotion. I got a purse, a hemp purse. I got shirts, hemp shirts. But here's the biggie. Automotive manufacturers, trunk lids, headliners, car parts, hemp. Now, I'm an old gambler that says you got to deal with the cards, the deck that they dealt you. You got to play with them. Kentucky is a perfect state for hemp. We've got to go beyond and be educated, Cody, about that issue and look at the benefits of hemp. These strip jobs that we've got, we plant locust trees, Philip Ellswick. What good's a locust tree for? Fence post? We could plant hemp. We could identify that as a hemp plantation. We could cultivate that for a major cash crop in Kentucky. We could sell that for lotions, perfumes, cosmetics, handbags, car parts manufacturing. But it takes an education. It takes an education to do that. The facts are, it is hard to differentiate the looks of it. But the TCH level is nothing compared to marijuana. It eradicates and neutralizes the marijuana plant. And as Paul Harvey would say, we got to learn the rest of the story. And it's an uphill battle. It's controversial. But when you look and you read and you study, hemp looks like a good fit. It was a great fit for Kentucky 70 years ago. And now we got nervous and marijuana and knee-jerk reaction. And this has come from a church guy. I'm preaching the gospel of hemp. It's the right thing to do for this state. We want jobs. We want economic opportunities. We need to do the hemp evaluation. Give us a pilot project. Let us try it. Let's show them the benefits of it. That's where I think we need to move to.
Well, we got one side for, one side against. Let's move over to Representative Combs and get your thoughts.
And you are certain it grows well on mountaintop developed property, right? Okay. My answer will be brief. My plate is full. I'm learning how to build roads, and I'm looking forward to the debate.
All right. Now we have 1 for, 1 against, and I think that was abstaining. So, Senator Jones, I believe you're the guy that's going to break this tie.
Well, what was the question? Well, I'm going to be for whatever my friends are for. So anyway, I started out 19 years ago prosecuting, and I spent a lot of my time the last couple of years addressing the prescription drug abuse issue. And I think we all know what prescription drug abuse, not just prescription drug abuse, but what drug abuse in general has done to Eastern Kentucky. And, of course, I worked on House Bill 1. I was on the conference committee during the special session. I was on the House Bill 1 Oversight Task Force, and I know this is not dealing with hemp. But when people I've worked with closely over the last few years on the drug abuse issue in law enforcement come to me and say they have serious concerns over this legislation. I'm not an expert. I don't know anything about agriculture. I'm not that familiar with the hemp issue, but I'm going to err on the side of what the law enforcement community's opinion is, because we do have a rampant drug abuse problem here, And as I understand it, as Attorney General Jack Conway said, it really doesn't matter what we pass in Kentucky until the federal government, until Congress passes legislation that allows the cultivation of industrial hemp. And, at this point, a lot of the things that politicians do and the folks who are pushing this issue, it's window dressing until, and it's much ado about nothing until the federal regulatory scheme would allow us to undertake a reasonable debate on that issue. Right now, we've got a lot of other problems. I don't see going into a lot of hoopla over the hemp issue until we're in a position to where if we passed a bill or we could entertain legislation that would actually do something. And, I'm not sure with the problems they have in Washington right now where industrial hemp is on the radar. I mean, we've got a lot of other pressing issues. And but at this point in time, I would vote no. And if there's a vote on the bill this session, I'm going to vote no because, when the folks in law enforcement are against it, I hate to be against my brother Keith.
Make that Keith Hall. The other brother Keith.
Well, anyway, but at this point, I can't be for the bill.
Thank you, Senator Jones. A couple things that hit me on this topic. One, I'm greatly disappointed that no one stole the line from the Miss America contest when the young lady said, "I'm only for it for medical and recreational purposes only." I just knew somebody was going to say that. Number two, the fact that you're even discussing it right now, Gatewood Galbraith has got to be saying, "I can't believe I passed away early." Let's get another question from the floor.
Back to the pension issue. One of the problems I think in the past has been there's not a means test based on age for retirement. And I think there should be a means test for a minimum age of 62 or 65 before a person could retire with full benefits. If you worked in the real world, you would have to, that's for sure. The other thing is some of our public officials retire and run for the same office again. To me, that's double dipping and totally unfair.
Senator Jones, would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, Jim, I introduced legislation a couple years ago. We got, to stop double dipping. And essentially what it did, and it sort of struck me as wrong that somebody retires from a job with a really high top 3 salary, and then they come back as a non-merit employee in one of these appointed positions. And we went through state government, and I really got a lot of feathers ruffled in the Beshear administration because of this, because if you start looking at the number of people that are drawing pensions and they're turning around and drawing a 6-figure salary, there's something wrong with that, because what it does is it creates a glass ceiling for other workers who are trying to further their career. And it's the same, with a lot of administrations, it's been the same group of people playing musical chairs in and out of these positions. I personally believe that you should only be able to draw one state pension, period. We've passed some legislation several years ago to deal with that. But what my bill proposed was if you came back in a non-merit position and your pension's $90,000 or $100,000 a year, that there's an offset, a dollar-for-dollar offset against your salary, because that disincentivizes people from coming back in and getting a cushy job and basically doubling their income. And it's wrong, and it's an abuse of the system. But I think this new legislation there is a component that specifies a minimum number of years of service and age combined in order to retire. One of the problems now, you can have somebody that's hired, say, in state government at age 18. They can retire after 22 years, or they can retire with 27 years of service at age 45, or even earlier, because they can buy 5 years, as I understand it. So you're having people in their early 40s that are retiring, and they're going to draw a pension if they live to be 85 years old. There's clearly not paying in enough money into the system even with the state match and the return on investment, to be able to justify the benefit that they're drawing out. And there are some changes that need to be made. The biggest question now is how do we dig out of the hole that we're in? And again, I'm not sure that the legislation that's going to be introduced is going to do that, but it may stop the hole from getting deeper.
Senator Jones, thank you for the comment. Jim, thank you for the question. Would anybody else like to respond to that? Because we have just enough time for one more question, I think Jared said. Bill?
Just to refresh our memory, the medical school does greatly benefit from coal severance money, which awards Kentucky residents or people wanting to stay in Kentucky the difference in the tuition from the University of Pikeville and the University of Louisville and the University of Kentucky. And each medical school student that makes that commitment. And thanks to Senator Bailey, Benny Ray Bailey, we have that. Secondly, we've benefited greatly from Governor Beshear's plan after the compromise didn't pass. Our juniors and seniors have gotten, from this area, have gotten a lot of money, assistance-wise, from that plan. And that's basically, as I understand, what you're going to reintroduce again, which almost passed. Where you might just explain a little bit more about that, what that will do, using multi-county, not specific county, but multi-county money, which was basically, and the studies show, was being misused. So you might tell them what that's going to do.
The compromise bill
that's a great plan.
Got down to the 36 coal counties that were involved, and what this money does, we take multi-county coal severance dollars, and it is given to juniors and seniors so that they will finish that baccalaureate degree. So of those 36 counties affected that are coal counties, the multi-county money will come in to be, and it will create a scholarship fund so that students who are attending schools, and they have to be, in our region, UPike will benefit, Union, Cumberland, most all of your private schools that are in coal counties will benefit from this. But it kind of goes along the same line of what we did with the same concept as what we did with the medical school scholarship program. What Mr. Baird just said is the way that scholarship is created or devised, the amount, is UPike sets its medical school tuition, and then you take the average of UK and U of L. And that equalization number in there is the amount of scholarships that a student can receive. So it equalizes it and makes it equal to what UK or U of L would charge. Same thing here. Whatever that private institution dollar amount is in that particular area, it creates that difference, which we've gone through several different numbers, but I want to say about $4,000 to $6,000 there. But it will equalize that tuition so that student can stay in that Cole County area using coal dollars to go to a school there at home and basically be paying a state institution rate, so a state tuition rate. So that's kind of what we're calling it, a scholarship equalization program, so that students can stay in their area, in their region, go to school at home, and basically be paying state tuition pricing.
We've got about 5 minutes left, so what I want to do is give each of you 1 minute, final comments, wrap up 1 minute each, and then we'll close the deal.
We'll start with State Representative Collins.
Thank you, sir. It's been a pleasure to be here, and I've enjoyed it very much. Going back what the comment was made that on the number of years, we passed a lot of issues down the road. We had a high 5, a high 3 years. Those issues are easy to vote for because a lot of people want that. But I think we made a lot of mistakes in lowering the age, the number of years, and everything. I retired 27 years, high 3 years in teacher retirement. I loved it. But I think it was a mistake to have that out there as a target to do, because I think it's cost the retirement system a lot of money. And there again, it's easy to make these votes to do these things for the benefit of the people, but it's tough to put it back on, just like when we forgive taxes. It's easy to vote to forgive taxes, but it sure is tough to put the taxes back on. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Hall.
Yeah. As I enter my 13th year, and I just want to say, being a coal miner's son and grandson, what a pleasure and what an honor it's been to serve as a servant to people of Pike County. And it's easy when you see the needs, and we get, and my principal's here, Angie Lester, and we're building a new $15 million school in Phelps. We're building a new school in Virgie. We're building a new school at Millard. And the benefits that this team, and I mean, they're like my brothers and sisters, and we say Hubie's our daddy, but we have been a really close-knit bunch, and it's greatly been a benefit to Pike County. And I want to say this, we all are business people, and we all have different areas of education expertise, and I got my W-2, and I made $23,000 as a state representative. Man, Jerry Smith, you don't do it for the money. You do it because of the passion and the love and the need, Cody, we see of our people to create opportunities for our people. I almost got on my hands and knees and begged the dean of University of Louisville to take one of our local Pike County girls. Leslie, help me. And I said, I'll be indebted for life. You just take this kid and give her the opportunity. We just look for the opportunity, Bill Baird, to give our people. And that's why when I'm at that Capitol every night and I look up that little bell tower and that little lights on, I get those little butterflies. It reminds me what I'm doing there and how blessed I am to represent the common folk on the creek. I hear their voices. I see the needs. And it's such a great passion to work. And what an honor it is for me to have Ray and have Leslie and have Hubie and to be such a great team and to move Pike County forward. And I'm very proud to be the one voice on the creek that cries on behalf of the less fortunate, the children, the poor, the veterans, the people that I have a passion and care so much for. And you've allowed me to do that, and I'm blessed among men to be able to get that opportunity. But thank you all.
Thank you. Representative Combs.
Thank you very much. I, too, like I said in the beginning, it is an honor to serve you all and to serve our region, to serve the Commonwealth. But likewise, doing this job, there are many, many days of reward. There are many, many days of frustration. It becomes very, very frustrating when you have so many issues before you and you want to fix them. And you're truly passionate about fixing them. And some of the obstacles you run into just seem so ridiculous. But they are there. But I'm going to tell you what, and I think the same thing happens with these guys as well. And I know it happens a whole lot more to rural legislators than it does urban legislators. A day doesn't go by, and I'm talking about weekends included, that we don't get phone calls from someone who needs help. They need something. Some days it's just as simple a question as, how do I do something, and who can help me? Let me tell you what, when you can help one of them, when you can help 1 out of 10, 1 out of 20, some days you can't help them, but they call you back and they say, thank you for trying to help me because nobody else has tried to help me. That's what makes this job worth doing. And that's why whenever I get those phone calls, I return them, I get somebody to return them, or I try to find out the answer for folks because they don't have anybody else to help them. And that's when I say rural versus urban. Our folks down in the urban areas, they don't get phone calls. You've got that kind of that urban county government that takes care of everything for them, and people don't ask. But our people in our region, they need help, they want help, and that's what I always say. That's what our job is. We work for you. That's what we're supposed to do. So when we can do that, that's what makes this job very, very rewarding. So, yes, some days I like to pull my hair out, but I'm going to tell you what, more days I go to bed at night and I'm smiling because somebody called back and said, thank you. Thank you. You helped me. Some you're able to, some you can't, but they just like the fact that you were there and you tried to help them. And that's what this job is all about. Something else I want to say, too. Coming out of Eastern Kentucky, we have one heck of a delegation. When you look at the time and the effort and how hard we worked, and the positions to which we've aspired, Eastern Kentucky is well represented. And I think when it comes to the rest of the Commonwealth, they're starting to understand what Eastern Kentucky is all about. But I'm going to tell you something. With those positions we earn comes a lot of responsibility, a lot of hard work. By golly, the pressure's on us, and we've got to produce. So, I think in representing Eastern Kentucky to the rest of the Commonwealth, we got to make some good things happen, and we got to find solutions for not just our people, but the entire Commonwealth. So we're very fortunate. I think that there's a big voice coming out of Eastern Kentucky now, but we got to show people Eastern Kentucky can help you fix your problems. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Jones, you get the final word of the night.
Well, you know, this is my 13th year. Keith and I came in 2001 together, and I think Hubie said 22 years now. I believe, is that right, Hubie?
23.
And then Leslie has been there going on 7 years. And we have had a very close working relationship. And I think I can speak for the entire Eastern Kentucky delegation, whether it's Speaker Stumbo or Senator Johnny Ray Turner, all of us in Eastern Kentucky. It is a tremendous honor and privilege to represent the people of Eastern Kentucky. And it is a humbling experience. I can tell you, if somebody gets elected to public office and it inflates their ego, they're in the wrong business. It's absolutely a humbling experience, because when, you know, even practicing law here for 19 years, you're exposed to things and you see things in these positions that you otherwise would never see. You know, we had a committee meeting at the Healing Place in Louisville this year. And when you have a parent call and ask you to see if you can help get a child into rehab, or someone calls and says, I have leukemia, I have no health insurance, I need a bone marrow transplant, is there anything that you can do to help me? You know, and many times there are things that we can do. We have an excellent staff in the Legislative Research Commission. We have contacts in virtually every area of state government. So if there is something that you need help with state government on, an issue that affects you or your family, please call us. And I think I can speak for all of us and say that we can be reached by phone, we can be reached by email. And that's the one thing about each and every one of us, is if you call us, we're going to call you back, we're going to stay in touch with you, and we're going to try to be there. You know, this is not just a job that you turn off, and sometimes, you know, you'd be surprised at what time, maybe not 3 o'clock in the morning, Keith, but we do get some late night phone calls. But in any event, you can contact us at any time. And again, thank you all for coming out tonight, and God bless you.
Thank you so much. I think we give everybody a big hand. Now, one thing I want to add is when Keith said that Hubert Collins was like the father, I kind of heard him under his breath say, older brother. So I just wanted to get that in before we go. I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. A wonderful turnout. Communication like this, I think, will solve our problems. And thanks so much to our legislators, to Pike TV for filming this, East Kentucky Broadcasting. I think this was across all of their stations across the board. So the broadcast has gone out to everybody that couldn't be here tonight. Also to our sponsor, AT&T, who made this event possible tonight. And, of course, to Jared and his staff and the chairman of the Southeast Chamber, Danny Van Hoos. On behalf of all of them, I'm Keith Casebolt. Thank you. Good night. Did a great job.